All right, so primary season is just around the corner. And what that means for many of us is that we're going to find ourselves in front of an empty ballot with a list of names, and we are going to have to choose one of those names. And it is because of that I decided to make a video where I list the three most important things that I believe that someone should look at when they're deciding who to vote for. Something I want to be clear about is this is what I view as most important. If you have other things that you think is more important that you should look at when you're deciding what candidates to support, you know, you can go with that, but this is what I believe that people should look at when they're deciding who they should vote for in an election. All right, so we'll start with number one. The most important thing that I believe people should look at when they're deciding who to vote for is what the candidate's policy proposals are. And that might seem kind of straightforward, but I really believe that this is something a lot of people miss. And that is due to a lot of the kind of flowery language that politicians tend to use. And so I'm going to kind of go with an example. So a politician might say they support increasing access to healthcare. And that sounds well and good, but like they're when they say that, they're not saying specifically what they support. Do they support Obamacare? Do they support a public option? Do they support Medicare for all? Those are three very different proposals. And just because a politician says that they support increased access to healthcare, that does not mean that they necessarily align with what you specifically want as a voter. And so I believe it's really important that when people are deciding who to vote for, they don't just look at the kind of flowery, showy rhetoric that people use, and that they really look at what are these candidates saying? What do they actually want to get implemented? For me personally, I am endorsing. I enjoy Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is who I'm going to vote for, and the reason I'm going to vote for Bernie Sanders, the most important thing when it comes to that, is I support a majority of what Bernie Sanders is proposing. I support Medicare for all. I support raising the minimum wage. I support ending many of the wars that we're in abroad. And no, a candidate doesn't have to agree with everything that you support for you to, kind of get behind them. But if your number one issue is gun control and you are very against gun control, you really want there to be less restrictions on guns, and then the candidate you support, they support a lot of gun restrictions, then you probably don't want to support them. No matter how professionally they talk or whatever nice things they say, if they are not for the specific policies that you support, then they really shouldn't be getting your support. So number two, the second most important thing that I believe you should look at when you're deciding who you should vote for is how does the candidate plan on getting their agenda implemented? Because, they could say that they support all of the things that you support, but then they actually don't have a plan for getting that passed. And to get into a more specific example, I really like Bernie Sanders, but a lot of people would say that some of his policies are unrealistic. So it becomes very important how he plans on getting those policies implemented. So why I like Bernie Sanders is that he believes in kind of, so say he wins the presidency, and then there's a senator who is a Democrat, but they don't support Medicare for all. So what Bernie Sanders says he would do is he would say, go to that senator, you talk to him in person, maybe call him up, and he would say, so either you are going to get on board with Medicare for all, or I'm going to go to your state and I'm going to campaign for your opponent in the primary. And I'm going to support a more progressive Democrat who is going to win because I'm the president. They're going to get more support because I'm going to endorse them. And then they're going to beat you. And then I'll have someone who supports Medicare for all. And so basically, what he's doing is giving these people a choice whether you get on board with my agenda or I'm going to get someone who will. And, that's just one example. But because of those reasons, the reasons that Bernie Sanders has stated of how he will get his agenda passed, I, am more likely to support him. All right, so the third thing that I believe that you should look at when you're deciding who you should vote for is whether or not there's anything in the candidate's past or their past voting record that suggests that they might be being insincere about, kind of the things that they're saying. So I'll stick with the gun control example. So say you have a candidate who says that they are super for, gun control. They really want to restrict people's access to guns. But every time an opportunity to kind of vote on that issue, whether it's in the Senate or Congress, has come up, they have voted against regulation. So they might say that they're for gun regulation, but every time they've ever been, kind of going to vote for it, they haven't voted in favor of it. So you kind of have to ask yourself, why do I believe that it's different now? And these are kind of questions that you should be asking yourself. And so to go back to my more specific example of Bernie Sanders, I believe that Bernie Sanders has a very long track record of, he's been in the Senate for a very long time. Before that, he was in the House of Representatives, and he has always supported a very progressive agenda. On a lot of issues, he has supported progressive ideals before they were even popular, things such as gay rights. And so, because of that reason, I believe that Bernie Sanders is sincere about the things he's talking about. And I don't believe that when he gets in the office, he's going to flip flop and not really be supporting the things that he said he's going to support. So those are the three main things I believe that you should look at when you're deciding who to vote for in descending order. So the first most important thing you should look at, what are their policy proposals? The second thing you should look at is, okay, what is their plan for getting those proposals implemented? And then the third thing you should look at is whether or not there's anything in their past that suggests that maybe they're not being sincere about what they're talking about. There are other things that people can look at when they're deciding who to vote for, but I really believe that when you boil it down to what is the most important thing, the most important thing is of like electing someone is what they're going to legislate, what they're actually going to do. And so that is why I've chosen those very three specific things that I look at when I'm deciding who to vote for. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. If you disagree with anything I said or have any comments, please comment down below, and I hope you enjoyed the video.